American battlefield readiness runs through our small businesses. It always has. The vehicles, the planes, and even rifles in our warfighters' hands rely on a supply chain of hundreds of specialty producers. A Patriot missile depends on hundreds more. These are the local factories, the shop floors, and the labs forging the arsenal of freedom. And that's why today, the Department of War and the Small Business Administration are establishing the Smaller War Plants Commission in the spirit of the historic Smaller War Plans Corporation, surging capital and expertise to support the innovative entrepreneurs, manufacturers, and workers every day expanding America's defense base. Our message is clear. President Trump is ending the era of dependence on foreign supply chains and our adversaries. This historic long-term commitment will reinforce the industrial depth that stands proudly behind the strongest military on earth. When we back the businesses who supply our forces, we outbuild, out-innovate, and overwhelm any adversary. We are transforming industrial capability into generational battlefield advantage. And in doing so, we will deter conflict, preserve peace, and ensure that no adversary tests American strength.
Secretary Hegseth has established the mission. America must build what our military needs when it needs it, right here at home. That's where our most innovative, agile businesses come in. The SBA is proud to join the Department of War in establishing the Smaller War Plants Commission. This name reflects the SBA's predecessor agencies formed during World War II and the Korean War that backed the mission-critical small defense manufacturers that armed American forces through victory. That mission continues today as we back the small manufacturers that comprise 70% of the defense industrial base. Today, the SBA oversees nearly $500 billion in a small business portfolio, and we're bringing our proven capital access and investment model together with the Department of War. Our joint mission will supercharge funding to those building our supply chain, tooling up, expanding, innovating, and hiring to deliver capability to the warfighter. The era of offshoring the production of power projection to our adversaries is over. Thanks to President Trump and Secretary Hegseth, the world's strongest military will be backed by the world's most nimble industrial base, offering our warfighters asymmetric advantage and our nation peace through strength.
Thank you and all the small businesses you help empower every single day for making it happen.
Well, it's my honor, and it's an honor to serve alongside you. I'm grateful for all you do for our nation and for our warfighters.
Likewise. All right, let's sign it. What a great initiative.
The United States has a missile problem, and it is not simply about how many weapons Washington has left. It is about how quickly America can replace the weapons it has already fired. The latest concern is one of the U.S. military's most advanced missile defense systems, THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. The system is designed to intercept ballistic missiles at very high altitudes, providing a critical layer of protection against potentially devastating missile attacks. And after months of fighting Iran, America's THAAD inventory has been heavily depleted. The bigger problem? Replacing those interceptors could take years. According to a new analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the United States had no new THAAD interceptor deliveries between August 2000-2006, with deliveries only scheduled to resume by April 2000-2007. That means the United States entered the Iran war with a production pipeline that was already moving extremely slowly. And then the missiles started flying. During Operation Epic Fury, American forces used large numbers of air defense interceptors to defend U.S. forces and bases against Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. CSIS estimates that THAAD inventories have fallen to roughly 250 interceptors. That is down dramatically from the inventory available before the war. And this is where the story becomes bigger than Iran, because THAAD is not a weapon the United States can simply replace by ordering thousands of new missiles from a factory and waiting a few months. The production base is highly specialized. Lockheed Martin, the manufacturer of THAAD interceptors, had been producing roughly 96 interceptors per year. At that rate, rebuilding inventories after a major conflict would take years. But Washington is now trying to change that. Under a new production expansion agreement, Lockheed Martin has announced plans to increase THAAD production capacity to around 400 interceptors a year. That is a huge increase. But even 400 missiles a year does not solve the immediate problem, because there is a backlog. There are procurement decisions, there are manufacturing lead times, there are testing requirements, and there are other countries competing for the same weapons. So America's problem is not simply, can we manufacture more THAAD missiles? It is, can we manufacture enough of them quickly enough to restore the stockpile? And right now, the answer appears to be no. CSIS estimates that rebuilding the inventory of several critical weapons heavily used during the Iran War will take 3 years or more under current delivery projections. That includes THAAD, Patriot interceptors, and Tomahawk cruise missiles. And that creates a very uncomfortable strategic question for Washington. What happens if another major war begins before those stockpiles are rebuilt? Imagine a crisis in the Western Pacific. China launches large numbers of ballistic and cruise missiles against U.S. bases and allied forces. At the same time, American forces still need missile defense in the Middle East. And Washington has commitments to allies in Europe. Suddenly, the question isn't whether America has the world's most sophisticated weapons, it is whether America has enough of them. That distinction is becoming increasingly important. The Iran War demonstrated that modern warfare can consume advanced missiles at an extraordinary rate. And missile defense is particularly difficult because the attacker can potentially launch relatively inexpensive missiles or drones while forcing the defender to respond with extremely expensive interceptors. A ballistic missile gets through, the consequences can be catastrophic. So commanders cannot simply decide to conserve every interceptor. They have to protect troops, bases, and critical infrastructure. That means firing the missiles when the threat is judged serious enough. And the United States has been doing exactly that. The result is a rapidly depleted inventory. CSIS says Patriot inventories have fallen below 1,000 interceptors, while THAAD inventories are around 250. The organization has also warned that the shortage creates a potential window of vulnerability for the United States. Not necessarily because America is incapable of fighting another war today. CSIS makes an important distinction here. The United States still has enough ammunition to continue dealing with plausible scenarios in the Iran conflict. The problem is what comes after. A depleted arsenal means Washington has less flexibility if another major conflict suddenly erupts. And that matters enormously because America's defense strategy isn't focused on Iran alone. The Pentagon has to think about Russia, North Korea, and most importantly, China. A potential conflict with China would be dramatically different from the fight against Iran. It could involve enormous numbers of missiles, attacks on bases across the Pacific, and long supply lines stretching thousands of kilometers. And missile defense would be central to that conflict. This is why the THAAD shortage has become such a serious strategic concern. America's military may be technologically superior, but technology does not eliminate mathematics. If an enemy can launch missiles faster than America can replace its interceptors, the defender eventually faces a difficult choice. Fire expensive interceptors at every incoming threat, or conserve them for the missiles considered most dangerous. Neither option is comfortable. And there is another complication. The United States isn't the only country that wants these systems. American allies are also trying to replenish their own missile defense inventories. The war has therefore created competition for production capacity. CSIS says diminished U.S. inventories could affect America's ability to provide Patriot, THAAD, and other systems to allies and partners. That could have consequences far beyond the Middle East. Ukraine needs advanced air defense. Gulf countries need missile protection. South Korea faces the North Korean missile threat. And American forces themselves need protection. So every interceptor delivered to one customer potentially represents an interceptor unavailable somewhere else. This is why the Pentagon is now pushing the defense industry to accelerate production. This is one of the central lessons of the Iran War. The United States may possess extraordinary military technology, but its industrial base has limits. And those limits are becoming visible. There is also a debate over how America reached this position. Critics argue that Washington has spent years maintaining insufficient stockpiles while simultaneously supporting Ukraine, Israel, and other partners. The Trump administration has at times blamed the Biden administration for sending too many weapons to Ukraine. Others argue that the problem is much older and reflects decades of underinvestment, low production rates, and assumptions about the kind of wars America would fight. CSIS itself says the Iran war is only one part of the explanation. The United States had deeper strategic, industrial, and institutional problems with its munitions stockpiles before the current conflict began. And that is perhaps the most important point. Iran did not create America's ammunition problem overnight. The war exposed it. Before Iran, U.S. officials were already worried that American stocks of advanced weapons were insufficient for a prolonged conflict against a peer competitor. So when headlines say America's THAAD missiles are stuck until 2000-2007, there is an important nuance. It doesn't mean America gets no THAAD missiles whatsoever until 2027. It means the pipeline has been extremely constrained, and even when deliveries restart, rebuilding the depleted inventory will take years. That distinction matters. Because this isn't a story about America suddenly becoming defenseless. It is a story about strategic depth. The United States still has powerful forces. It still has aircraft, ships, submarines, missiles, and multiple layers of missile defense. But the cushion is smaller. And in a major war, that cushion can be the difference between having options and being forced into difficult choices. But replenishing some of the weapons it uses to do it can take years. And that may be the real strategic lesson of the THAAD shortage. The next war may not be decided only by who has the most advanced missile. It could be decided by who can manufacture the next 1,000 missiles fast enough. For America, that has become an uncomfortable race against time. And with THAAD deliveries only beginning to recover from 2000-2007 onward, Washington's missile defense problem may remain a serious strategic issue long after the Iran war itself is over.